So Psych BA, the majority of most Psych BA graduates do not pursue graduate training or graduate school. Again, we want to be realistic with the opportunities. You will not be able to be a practicing psychologist without an advanced degree in psychology. And that's just the reality. I've had some students, that graduate with a BA degree, and they're like, I wanted to be a counselor. And it's like, well, in order for you to be a counselor, you have to have the additional either MA degree or Master in Science degree, as well as possibly even a PhD or a PsyD. And again, those are some of the factors that's just the reality check. Because again, with your graduate degree, you're delving deeper and deeper into the mind and learning more specific work in regards to, say, for example, treating and diagnosing and stuff like that. And so that's really where, for me, that's really where it came down to, because I had a BA degree in psychology, and it was really hard to find a job still. And I remember I started working with kids with special needs, kids and adults. And these were kids that were developmentally disabled. And so within that, that's where I was developmentally and also physically disabled. So again, that's where I kind of positioned myself in that area. But again, like I said, it was one of those things where I needed a job, and that was probably, I would say, the only job that was willing to take me in, even just with a BA in psychology degree. And so that's really where it came down to, and I wanted to go back to school again. And so during that time, that's when I enrolled in a master's in forensic psychology, emphasis on homeland security degree. And so that's where during that time I was working and then also going to school. And that's when I had a newborn too at the time. So it was kind of a juggle in terms of parenting and juggle in terms of work life, a juggle in terms of academia. So when I hear students say, it is a juggle, I said, I know. I said, I went through that. I went through the whole shebang. And so again, those are some of the factors you kind of have to take into consideration is, even in working on Navajo Nation. So I know the struggles of internet outages and everything else. So I've had students who simply said, it's harder now. I said, not really. I said, back then, I remember racing off to, Chinle or to Wheatfields or to Tsaile to try to submit my graduate school assignments. I remember when NAU used to be just right next to the post office in Chinle, and I would be sitting there at 12, 1 in the morning trying to submit some of my assignments and really, just trying my hardest to really solidify my assignments. And within that time, you had those responsibilities, and the reality is when you're in graduate school, you don't really get extensions. If you get an extension, mind you, you're paying out of pocket. And even now with my doctoral program that I'm in, if I'm going to get an extension, I believe it was $250 just for an extension, which just affords me I think another month. So again, these are some of the things that you have to take into consideration when you're in graduate school or anything else, or even when you're in your BA program. Understand there's almost a little bit of leniency. So that's kind of one of the things you kind of take into consideration when you're in school. So again, that's one of the things you look at as well. So the Psych BA degree, no graduate school. So again, here are some of the careers. So this is kind of a listing. This is through the APA. The Careers in Psychology data tool answers this question for those who go into the workforce. So again, you can click on the pictures for a larger image of both, I believe. Yes, both of them. I did make it to where you can just click on it and it'll kind of show you a bigger picture. So again, these are BA degrees. This is back in 2015. And some of these things changed just because of COVID. COVID did wreak havoc. But at the same time, it's very unique because psych majors are much needed right now. Psych, counseling, social work, and all the therapy degrees, our therapy-related degrees are much needed just because of the impact through COVID. You realize that COVID had a huge disruption. I would call that a unique trauma because one, it's primarily something that happened, nationwide, worldwide, and it really impacted how people interpreted the world around them. Their level of safety was tested. Their level of, even to this day, it's still, there's still things, and that's one of the things I always tell people is, we're not going to return to normal just like that. We went through a trauma. We went through something that has altered our own physical safety. And so again, when that happened, even in terms of jobs, you have individuals who are looking at it and saying, well, I was laid off for this amount of time. Now is the time to go back to school. And it is a great time because there's a lot of resources out there. But you're also modifying that. You're saying, okay, what things, in the future do I have to prepare for? And I'm a big preventionist, so I'm a big believer in always trying to be as prepared as possible. And so even when this hit, it was kind of saying, okay, what things can I maneuver? How can we remanage individuals' mental health and everything else to make sure that they're able to function safely, but they're also able to function in a manner that helps them and betters them in their situation, stuff like that. And that's what you're really doing. You're really applying these skills into the career workforce. So the degrees in psychology data shows trends. So here you have the trends. So again, you're having a lot of individuals who kind of started leaning towards that element of the BA degree. But again, in the past few years, it has flattened. But overall, like I said before, a lot of individuals are kind of wanting to go into the helping profession, and the reason why is they saw the impact to their loved ones, and some of them were inspired, saying, "Hey, I saw this, and I want to help others. I want to really," and that's where you have that the human spirit, because again, we're looking at those elements and saying, "Okay, I want to help others that are in this unique situation." So the occupation of interest. So again, each one is different. You have all these listings, so it is there. You can go through that, and that's really why I really try to indicate to students, really search around. Just simply saying and just really pigeonholing yourself and saying, hey, I am going to only be a counselor, and you hate counseling, it's going to probably be a bad fit. And so that's really where I tell students, really start looking around. Start looking around now. Look at your skill sets. Look at what things are beneficial to you. Look at what things are areas that you feel like, hey, I have some pretty good grounding here versus here. And that's really what you're looking at is how can I be marketable, but also approachable by other employers. Here's some more again. So you can go through that. Here's some more. Like I said, each one kind of comes from different areas and different perspectives and different utilizations, and each one can prove beneficial. Some more again. And some more again. There's a lot. And some more. Some more. But again, some of these are starting to delve into the area of actually having a master's degree or even a doctorate. So again, you're starting to see that as well. So find the job that makes you happy. Again, serious self-reflection. I can't even say the word reflection. Coupled with a proactive approach by psychology educators. Can help minimize potential future job career dissatisfaction. And that's really what I'm looking at. You don't want to have a job burnout, and that's why I do different exercises. And you'll be seeing that later on with some of the exercises. You'll look at job burnout, and I really try to prevent students from having job burnout or career burnout. Because I went through that. I went through career burnout. Like I said, I was working with domestic violence and sexual assaults, and I was counseling a lot. I was counseling a lot of individuals, crisis counseling, and doing a lot of psychoeducation with inmates, and working from that capacity, doing a lot of pro bono work with working with inmates. And when you do a lot of pro bono work, understand why you're doing it. Because I met a lot of individuals who went into it and got into the career or field that they were working in, and there was almost an element of there wasn't a good trade-off. And I think that's one of the things I always tell students is make sure you're getting a good trade-off when you're working. Make sure that you're doing it for the mission, not so much the people. So that's what you're looking at. Is when I went into it, I burned myself out. I went hard in terms of educating, in terms of doing the job and everything else, and being the youngest in the field. I was able to do the work, But at the same time, it kind of came at that detriment of myself. I almost became, somewhat cynical, and that's where I had to take a step back and say, "Whoa, this is, this is not a good fit. I need to take and have that level of self-care and go in a different direction." And so that's what I did. Went into a different direction, started working as a counselor in school, and started doing behavior intervention counseling with students. And that changed. You saw a different perspective. You saw the kids from a young age, from kindergarten all the way into high school. And so for me, that was kind of like a huge benefit, because I was able to work with a different perspective, work from the element of implementing psychoeducation with students from a young age, and kind of help them as they're going along. And it kind of it recharged me. It recharged the batteries of counseling. And so I was able to come from that perspective and really re-solidify. And that's when I came across teaching and decided to go into professor work. And that's where I'm at right now. And so during that time, this one also affords me the time to write, to work on my dissertation, but also give me the time to do additional research. And that's where I'm doing additional research in that for Gwinnett College. And it kind of helped me. It helped me to change, and it gave me a different satisfaction. And then know what you want, and then complete narrow job searches to ensure that your qualifications match the jobs you are looking for. And that's what you're really looking at. You're looking and saying, hey, what do I really want? And that's really where I really ask a lot of my students, what do you really want? What do you want out of your career? What do you want out of this? What do you want out of that? It's the same with counseling. You ask those same questions. You say, hey, what are you wanting from your relationships? What are you wanting from counseling? What are you wanting? And just kind of taking those firsthand accounts. And a lot of individuals are like, I don't know. And so that's where you explore. You say, okay, if I don't know, then how can I become better at knowing? And so that's really what you're looking at.